Welcome to Nachtwaffen Pilot with Penny Bradley. The audience is going to laugh at this. This is our second attempt. We already got booted offline once. So welcome, Matt Tracy. We are going to be discussing today how you tell who's real and how you keep ownership of your work rather than get scammed by somebody out there. So, Matt, before you get voted again, welcome.
So, get to start talking, huh?
Yeah, you get to start talking.
Well, for starters, I guess that's the whole of your own, what you've put out. There are people out there who have similar experiences to yours, so there's kind of like different categories there. There are people that are real, they just have similar experiences to yours. And then there are the people that are trying to join and think for other people plagiarizing. To really tell between, and all I can say to that is if you're gonna go public and you're gonna talk about, your experience,
Can you
make sure
off,
you get it written down.
can you turn off your camera because you're getting your voice, your audio is bad.
How do I video?
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, the sound's a lot better. So
Okay. Something really weird's going on
they don't let
end, I
us.
think it is.
They don't want us to talk about this today.
Yeah, they don't want us to give techniques to find out their cronies.
Yeah. I would say that the first technique is if they don't have actual memories, they should not be public. If everything that they are telling,
that you can really trust somebody if you really get into a particular memory, or really start getting into the meat. What did it look like? What are you wearing? Where was everybody else in the room? When you start really.
and he's gone again. Okay, what he was going into was that when you start getting into the meat of the memory, you can tell more about was it a real memory or was it something that they've plagiarized. I'm going to say if they don't have memories, they should not be public.
Are we back?
You're back. If
it completely crashed on me again.
If the person that's talking doesn't have any memories at all, and they went to see a psychic and the psychic told them they did this, and this, they should not be public because they don't know what they're talking about.
I wouldn't believe the psychic unless I had memory recall of that myself. I don't trust a psychic if they were confirming what I remember. Like, okay, I already had that recall and they're describing exactly what I remember that I ever told soul.
Yeah.
It's the only time I would trust that person. I would trust a psychic or a medium or anything that like with information that I don't already have.
Well, my thing is, why pay somebody that much money, because the going rate is $300 a session, why pay them that much for something I remember anyway, and that I wouldn't trust unless I did remember it?
Exactly.
You know,
It makes their existence a mute point.
I did pay quite a bit for my first regression hypnosis, but I was dealing with a lot of stuff that did not make sense. A lot of memories were just swirling. And the regression was not about SSP stuff. It was about the only thing related to this SSP was I kept having this feeling that I had been modified with Draco DNA. And in the regression, it came out that I was correct and that it had been that I had been modified by a group known that called themselves military laboratories, which I have not heard that term out there. So I did some background research after that and found that DARPA used to be called military laboratories.
Interesting.
So, but
I
that's
would
like,
trust. I would trust that under specific circumstances. First off, that while you're under hypnosis, under regression, you're not being directed, guided by the person to answer in a specific way,
yeah,
if you know what I mean.
yeah.
They're
Hypnotists are
letting it
really
happen
bad.
organically.
Hypnotists are really bad to lead people. And
That's the word I'm looking for.
if you go to a hypnotist, you need to make it clear you don't want to be led. You want to know what's really there. And you want a recording so that if they do lead
Right.
you, that you can see it in the recording. I mean,
Exactly.
you know, your
I
memory
do
should
I do
your mem
self hypnosis through Hindu meditation techniques. Nobody else in the room. When I do memory recall, another big thing is you're if you're digging down deep and you're having somebody else hypnotize you, do a regression, I would seriously recommend you wear an EMF cap during the session
yes.
because V2K is able to get in and sound just like your and you think that it's you talking to you, dredging things up when it's AI and a computer
Um,
um,
Matt, most of that,
pumping stuff into
Matt,
your head.
most of that is not coming through. It's coming in garbled.
Crap. I have to know about it. I have a serious problem. And it's weird too. Absolutely nothing else is giving me trouble. Only as soon as we started recording Messenger and Zoom, absolutely nothing else.
I don't have anything else on right now. And
I don't even have Messenger on, but for some reason, since we started recording, it keeps crashing too. Every time I go to try and communicate with you after Zoom crashes, I can't access Messenger.
well, somebody doesn't want you talking.
Somebody doesn't want me talking. So I don't know what to do about that.
Okay, so have you had a regression hypnosis?
An official one, no.
Okay.
With somebody else there, no.
Okay,
I
I've had
haven't
three.
found anybody that I trust.
I've had I've had three, and one of them left me in Omega programming mode, and the man did not know how to get me out of it. So that has been something that made me afraid to have it again.
That's what I'm talking about. I haven't found anybody that I trust. So all of my recall is done either spontaneously on its own or through self meditation.
Okay. I know you're in a chat group on Messenger with Joseph Powell and Arkham Ra and others, and
Yeah.
that you guys work through memories together, because most of them you were there together when they happened. How has that worked out for you?
Yeah. Well, the I've kind of stayed away from the group mostly. Joseph left the group. It wasn't focusing on that anymore. So I'll usually work with Arkham or Joseph individually, and we'll just talk about what we remember, and we'll trigger each other. And I a lot of what I remember from Montauk, Joseph will say one word or describe one picture, and it's so triggering for me. I mean, it's like somebody with amnesia walking through their old house that they forgot. Suddenly, it's all triggering and coming back, or seeing a photograph of something that they did but had forgotten because of their amnesia.
Mm-hmm.
He'll describe something, and then suddenly all these scenes will just start cascading at me, and I'll start describing everything I'm seeing. It's kind of how it goes. These days, I've been chipping away at my walls so much that I'm not fighting it as much as I was in the early days when I first started recalling. It comes easier. The more you do it, the easier it just comes to the surface when all you do is give it just a little push.
Yeah, when I was first dealing with the memories of that first altar, um, that was when I was working with Will Glover, and
I've had a lot of recall with him.
he's as powerful a telepath as Joseph Powell is,
Oh, I
and
know.
and he was the one who first showed me myself on the bridge of the ship that you and I and Will served under Joseph. And it was startling because he had the ability to link up with me, take us both to show me in his head what my altar on the bridge was doing through his altar's eyes. And that was the most startling thing that he ever pulled off with me. And now when I first started doing podcasts, you and he were among the first that I interviewed, because I knew both of you were real. partially because I knew I had served with him, and you had coinciding memories. Now, that's one of the ways that people in the public can know if someone's real. Okay. If you're out there in the public and you have no memories and you were never part of this, this is not going to work for you. But if you are pretty sure that you were out there and you start to remember people, then that's pretty sure sign that you did something together, not necessarily what you initially remember, because that first memory is a cover memory, and you have to get past
Usually it is, yeah.
you have to get past that cover memory and open the curtains and see what really happened. And then you'll start to have some idea of what you were involved in. Because my cover memory, oh my God, I was abducted every Friday night, literally for decades. And they gave me the same cover memory every time. I was a mermaid swimming in a kelp bed. From that cover memory, I was supposed to figure out that I had served in deep space with the Germans, right? Wrong.
You know,
Their,
you
their whole point
know what my
was
ever
their whole point was to make sure that I did not remember. So I do a self-hypnosis technique that's probably pretty similar to yours. And the first thing I do once I get myself to that stage is I say, okay, I want to see what really happened. Open the curtains and show me. Now, I'm not erasing that cover memory, okay, because it's still a valid thing for me to know about, because this is what the agency wanted me to remember. So I open the curtains. I don't erase that cover memory, but I go deeper into what really happened. And that was when I started finding out about a lot of things that that most people out there are like, well, it's all black and white. These are the good guys, these are the bad guys. Bullshit. Everybody out there thinks they're good guys. Everybody.
there's no good guys out
There are no
there.
good guys. Everybody from Earth out there is involved in slave trade. Period. We are all kidnapped.
That's automatically a telltale sign to me that they are bad guys. I don't care what motives they have to do
We
it.
are all kidnapped as young children. We are all put through mind fracture. And then we are all sent to our assignments as slave labor. So we are all slaves out there, even if we're told we're officers. So right from the get-go makes everybody bad guys. If not, why not? So how do you tell who's real when you've got people telling their cover memories? How do you tell who's real when they're stuck in the good guy, bad guy narrative? How do you tell who's real whenever they're quoting alternative holy books and not giving them credit? We've got one guy out there, and no, I'm not going to name him, but he's one of the more recent guys, and he's quoting from the Urantia book. Guys, the Urantia book was written by the Mantids, channeled. You know, he's also quoting from Ashayana Dean, who wrote the Voyager series. Now, that is the most convoluted mess that I've ever read. But there are certain spiritual groups out there who seem to think that it's valid and that being able to quote it automatically gives you credibility. It doesn't. SSP is military. We are kidnapped children who are assigned to military positions in different factions. We are set against each other in those factions. Do we choose that? Oh, hell no. So if you're hearing something that's not possible on Earth, okay? Like, well, I levitated 50 tons. You need to think about, how did they do that? If it doesn't make sense on Earth, they're probably pulling it out of their ass. True? Because, yes, we have psychic abilities. Okay? Out there, I have the ability to heat up liquids using my mind. I focus energy on a spot, heat up the liquid. If it happens to be your cerebrospinal fluid, I can blow up your head. If it
And I've
happens, if it
seen you
happens,
do
yeah, you've seen me do it. If it happens to be an underground ocean on a planet, I can blow up that world. If it happens to be a lava pit under in the center of a planet, I can blow up that planet by just heating a liquid enough that it makes the solids around it explode. Now, that's a legitimate psi ability. Okay. You've also got levitation. Telekinesis is a legitimate psi ability. You've got people here on Earth that can do it. Hell, I've seen Ileana the Star Traveler do it here. So when they start talking about certain abilities, is it something that makes sense? Is it something that can be done here? Because space is just an extension of here. It's still 3D. It's still physical. It's still just like here. It's just past the atmosphere. So if they're talking about that they're shape-shifting, do you know anything here that can shapeshift?
nope.
Have you ever physically seen somebody shapeshift? Have you physically seen somebody shooting energy out of their hands? I mean, maybe if they've got some sort of lasers installed.
I've seen I've seen the kind of like lightning sparks shoot out of people's hands, but beams of some sort, no.
Yeah, I know that Kruger enhances their people with stuff that they look like Borg from Star
Oh
Trek.
yeah.
They have guns, they have lasers, they have
If I see like a cybernetically enhanced person with like a laser on their arm, that makes sense to me. But if there's no technology involved, I can't see them, creating. I can see them creating a plasma ball because I can understand the science and physics of it.
yeah. And that's something that is spoken of in the Hindu holy books. It is. That's something that the gods are capable of doing. And the gods, as you and I both know, all of the gods are ETs.
And every time I've heard you and other people talk about the Shahami able to create things right out of the thin air, they're basically manipulating the thin air. I have wondered about that, and and thought about, I'm wondering if that's actually some sort of technology and not an actual psi ability because of the way the stories have been told to me and how it coincides with, if they're able to do that, why do they need to mine resources on other planets?
I've never seen their blue collar folks do that.
Which makes me wonder if it's technology, just
It,
like how the life extension technology is only for the royal
yeah,
class.
the life technologies stuff is only for their royal class. They don't use it on their blue collar folks. And they have blue collar folks that do mining. So yes, they do mine for resources.
Without life extension technology and without exposing themselves to a nitrogen atmosphere,
Yeah,
the average Jahami person will live about 2,000 years.
yeah,
With
that's
life extension technology, they can live up to 500,000 years.
yeah.
Not if that
That
life extension technology will not go that far if they become exposed to a nitrogen atmosphere like Earth. That's why they made us, so they didn't have to deal with this.
exactly. So you've got people out there who are coming up with things that are inconsistent with the historical records. Well, I'm calling them historical records, but they're couched in religious terminology. They've been they've been recorded as religious documents. But if you see something in somebody's testimony that is not 3D possible here, it's not 3D possible out there either. And
I have experienced the majority of our community is all up in this. It's all astral, and they get taken only astral at night and their body stays here, and that's all bullshit.
yeah, if they're taken
When you get
astrally,
taken, you get
they're
taken physically.
yeah,
If you're experiencing a dream or a memory of being taken astrally into some other dimension, I'm 100% certain that is a screen memory.
if you're being taken astrally, you are no longer describing SSP because SSP is military. I hear a lot of people talking consciousness this, consciousness that, astral this, astral that. Yes, I've had astral
Even
experiences, but
even
they're not
ET
SSP.
abductions, every time I was taken, it was physical.
Yeah,
I've never been taken astrally. I have had astral projection experiences that I induced, but I have never been taken astrally. I have always, even by aliens, even by the Ponti, they actually gave me a tour of their digs, their casa. And
that's
they
cool.
they took me physically.
Yeah, they take you physically. Um, if it's an extraterrestrial, they're taking you physically. Now, if you're being taken by interdimensionals, if you're experiencing
That's
astral
a whole nother
anything,
ball game.
that's something else.
That's not SSP in any
SSP is
way, shape, or
physical.
form. And that's
Always,
not alien abduction either in any
no,
way.
no. I think what we've got going on are separate categories that are being merged because of religion.
I believe that. I know people in my own family are heavily see things through a religious polarized view, and
Uh-huh.
they can't see outside of that polarization. If you
I
try to explain it to them, even if you make sense to them, even if they say you make sense to them, they call bullshit on you because it doesn't fit their religious views. And they're like, I can't believe that because it doesn't fit this.
Okay, we are to the point where people have to start understanding that human beings are being physically abducted in their preschool years. They are being physically mind fractured. They are being used as slave labor in physical space in military applications.
I recently found out I
And
was two
that
years old when I
that
was first taken for processing.
there are thousands, millions even of other possibilities, but those are not SSP. And if
Right.
people are seeing angels and they're seeing demons and they're seeing archons and they're seeing, you know, anything other than a physical being, then they're in something else.
They're dealing with something completely different.
Exactly. And I've been mortified. Okay, I've been public for almost exactly 6 years. It'll be 6 years the end of next month.
Almost as long as I've known you.
And during this entire time, I have been talking about being abducted by humans, being put through mind fracture by humans, being used in space by humans in physical military applications. And every time I have opened my mouth, I have had somebody scream demon at me.
Oh, yeah.
And we are not demons. We are not demon possessed. We are victims of our own government kidnapping us as kids. Now, I'm trying to
I
get
was
this
I was
kidnapping
never
stopped.
given a I was never given a choice. I
I
was
was
never
4.
given an option. I thought I was about 4 or 5. I just found out I was 2 years old when I was first taken for processing
Yeah.
for mind fracture. And I didn't get a choice in the matter.
No.
Why would somebody call me evil, call me a demon when nobody gave me a choice?
When your government comes and kidnaps you, who who in their right mind thinks we had a choice?
Uh, The thing is, and here's my question: the government, a person being given orders, comes and takes me, mind fractures me, tortures me, and then I come back and everybody calls me demon.
Yeah.
Who who's the real demon there in that situation?
In my opinion, it's the people calling us demons.
I
And
was
I'm to the point that I have had so much of it. So much of it. It's like every day I have my YouTube channel set up where that if they use that word in their comment will not post.
Oh wow, I didn't know you could do that.
Oh yeah, that's a relatively recent development because I was hand deleting every one of them
Oh
because
wow.
I've been told that I had been dedicated to Odin as a newborn, well, gee, my father was a preacher for the Church of Christ, and he was a true believer, and there was no way in hell he was going to ever dedicate me to Odin. Not gonna happen, okay? And if he had, my mother would have killed him. So, I mean, my parents are my parents were Church of Christ. My father died in 1980. My mother is still Church of Christ. And they are as devout as any dyed-in-the-wool Catholic or any Pentecostal. There is no changing that. And it's so I'm going to state, if they're coming out and they are talking about demons and they are quoting the Urantia book or the Law of One or the Bhagavad Gita or even the Emerald Tablets, rather than talking about their actual experiences in a space-based military, I don't think they're real.
I concur. If you'll look at your entire history record of your interviews, my entire history record of my interviews, Tony's entire history record of his interviews, Joseph's entire history record of his interviews, and so many more. Specific individuals like us come out, and all we're discussing is our memories of events that were happening right before our eyes in 3D physical reality.
Mm-hmm. That's what
And when it
real,
comes to me,
that's what the real ones are talking about, is 3D physical reality in military-based applications. And
when
if they're talking about anything else, they're not SSP. They may be great,
right
they may
when
be great religious figures, but they're not SSP.
And then you've got these people that have been really trying to flood the community, and some of them are actual SSPers, but they're so caught up in the religion of um, these groups that are coming up saying, hey, we're saving kids and we're doing all of this and that in the
Oh,
background. And then I'm like, where's the proof? Where are these kids?
yeah,
What happened to the kids?
if you're saving 40,000 children, there's going to have to be places to take care of those kids.
Somebody would notice.
There would have to be people to take care of those children. There would be ads out for foster parents or nursing
Or
or
if they're brought back to their actual families,
yeah.
somebody's going to talk.
Oh yeah. There's going to be evidence.
If there's
So
that many kids suddenly showing back up, rescued from slavery, someone is going to know, someone in the news is going to find out
and
somewhere.
those kids are all going to need mental health care, because that's not
Yes.
something that's going to be fun for them to live with. And they're going to have behavior issues, and nobody's going to be able to keep that quiet.
No.
An extra 40,000 kids? Come on. And that,
The moment somebody brings that kind of thing up, I immediately call bullshit.
yeah, I do too. There, I'm going to flat out say it. Q was a unit in the NSA that had been assigned to find Ed Snowden. And when he got sanctuary in Russia, they were reassigned to make Trump look good and to keep the truther movement chasing its own tail, following breadcrumbs. And they were enormously successful at it, to the point that there was a copycat who came out calling himself QAnon. And between the two of them, almost all of the truther movement was co-opted. These were the only people who had the research skills to be able to dig through the bullshit and keep the government accountable. And they were suddenly chasing rumors and innuendos and lies about people and believing it all as, oh, oh, you have to follow the plan. You have to trust the plan. Trusting the plan is just another abdication of personal responsibility. So now you've got the SSP community, the truth community are all sitting around totally emotionally invested in a plan that is designed to keep them sitting still and doing nothing. If you are spinning your politics into your testimony, you're not telling the truth. I don't know how
I
else to
agree.
put it. I have no idea how else to put it. These
I've had
people,
so many hosts try to talk politics with me, and I'm like, that's not my subject. I don't know politics. I don't
actually, I do
understand
know politics.
it very well.
I've been
You're
studying
very
all,
educated in it. We talk about it in private, but
yeah.
I'm in the place of asking questions to you because I don't I don't study it. I don't talk about it. I don't think about it. I
I
focus
I
on
grew up in
what's
a
in front of me.
I grew up in a family where my dad was a preacher for the Church of Christ and he was a John Bircher. And my mother's father was an elder in the Church of Christ and he was a New Deal Democrat. And every Sunday we would go to Grandpa's house and Dad and Grandpa would get into an argument. Well, Grandpa was one of those people that he could switch sides in the middle and argue either side just as well. And sometimes you had to stop and ask him, so what is it you really believe? Because he could argue both sides so well. And when I got to be about 12, I started having opinions of my own. And I had to be able to defend them from both of those men. And that's why I can defend what I believe politically. But I've been doing this since I was a kid. This is not something new for me. I sit back, I read the papers. At this point, I have a subscription to Foreign Policy.
See, I'm
It,
more focused in the sciences, more of the fringe sciences. That's
well, foreign
literally
po-
since I first had access to the internet. That has been my obsession.
since I brought it up, I need to tell people foreign policy is the mouthpiece of the Council on Foreign Relations. It is the organization that both parties, everybody belongs to. If you are in any kind of high political office or you are on a board of directors of any corporation, you have a membership in this. This is what the elites are telling their people. So if you want to know what's going to happen, you need to have that. They'll let you read 2 articles a month for free.
See, I didn't even know that.
So, hey, Daddy was John Bircher. They thought the CFR were the enemies, and they may be, but it's always good to know what your enemy is plotting.
Oh yeah, that's always a necessity.
So that's why people will ask me stuff and they don't know where I got the information. I'm getting it straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, I'm not pulling it out of my ass. I don't pull any of this out of my ass. I tell you the truth about my test about my experiences in space. I tell you the truth about the science that I studied at university because I was pre-med microbiology chemistry, and I finished 2 full years of calculus and 2 full years of engineering physics. So I'm not an idiot anywhere. And I've been bored, and I had a tutor who was an Illuminati, and he has assigned me to learn to read Latin. And that's what's been filling my excess time. Latin is a very difficult language for English speakers to learn.
I noticed. I've looked it up.
Yeah, it's fun.
I kind of skimmed it.
It's fun, huh?
I
So
think
that's,
one of the easiest languages for an English speaker to learn is actually German.
yeah.
It's one because they're be surprised. People will be surprised if you try to learn German, find out just how many English words are actually German words and how many
Mhm.
German words are actually English words.
English in my,
They may sound a little different, but once you look at them and you sound them out, I was like, oh shit.
yeah, English is just French and German stirred together not real well.
Well, French is German,
Yeah.
a dialect of German. The French were a German tribe, a Germanic tribe that migrated and aligned themselves with the Romans
Mhm.
during the Germanic Wars with the Romans.
Well, they came through and they invaded Rome, burnt it, and then they took over Gaul and
Yeah.
ran it as though they were Romans. And that's what who the Merovingians were. They were Frankish tribal warlords who came in, married the Roman princesses, and you know, that is the traditional way to legitimize your rule, is to marry the daughter of the guy you just stomped.
Yep.
Yeah, that is the time-honored technique. And as long as you don't change a whole lot for the common people, they'll go along with it. Really, history shows that. The common people, as long as they still have their roof over their head, their food on the table, and clothes on their back, they really don't care who's boss.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like every time we change presidents, that's literally the same situation for us. Nothing changes on our end except for when they change policies.
When they
If they
change,
change policies, then you get upset. If they don't change policies, then you're still living in the same shit you were living in yesterday.
what I've noticed in my lifetime is that the rhetoric changes, but the actual policies of the nation have been pretty much steady my entire lifetime until recently. And the last this century, there has been a massive power grab, and it started right after 9/11 and has been gathering steam.
I've been noticing that, and I'm like, I've been trying to figure out the behind the scenes power plays that are going on, like who are the real characters behind the scenes, because the people that you see on the news are not the people actually doing this. These
No,
are
they're
all
not.
just puppets. They're puppets being moved with strings. Um,
I
the
have
people that are
I have
actually
been
doing the power plays, you've never heard their names, never seen their faces.
I have been digging for 30 years to find out who's actually in charge.
That's literally as far as I've gotten is I figured out that the people who are actually pulling the strings, they say on the news that the richest family on earth is the Rothschilds, and their total net worth of the entire family combined is $6 trillion. And I suddenly figure out that, oh my God, these are not the actual richest people on earth. The
Nope.
actual richest people on earth and the people who are actually making all of the decisions globally, not just our country, but globally, because it's about 13 different families that have a singular origin. But these people, none of us have ever seen their faces. None of us have ever heard their names. None of us has ever witnessed their existence, and
Well,
yet they're there.
I have checked back, and the 13 families are that most people think of, the ones that Springmeyer identified. They are not who's in charge. Um, they are so intermarried with 100 other families that they might as well all be just one. Uh,
Yeah,
they
pretty
do
much.
have a lot of power and money, but
I know
they're taking
Putin is
orders
what,
too.
third cousins to several of our presidents.
Well, hell, I'm third cousins to several royal houses, but
I'm just
it's
making a point.
it's through a bastard, and I'm not showing up at any palaces demanding to be considered family.
I'm just making a point. I mean, we call them enemies and bad guys, and they call us enemies and bad guys. And Putin himself is like second and third cousinry to
Well,
several individuals that have been our presidents.
and the point is that there are two species here on this planet, and they look
Yes,
very similar to each other. And
these days.
one of them is in charge, and one of them isn't. And that's from the point of view of the working class man, is that the elites are in charge. The truth of the matter is that they are underneath an ET layer, and the ETs are in charge. And that's
Their
ultimately,
management.
in the 30 years I have been digging through to see who is in charge, it came down to the Jahami that we know as Marduk runs Earth. Period. Nothing is controlled by human beings. It's controlled by an ET who has owned Earth for a hell of a long time.
I have figured out who Enki and Enlil are in several different cultures.
Mhm.
I've been having trouble trying to figure out who Marduk is. Like
Marduk is
in
Enki's son.
Egyptian cultures, yeah, I know. I figured out that in the Egyptian cultures, Enki is actually what's that guy with the
Ptah.
gator face?
He's Ptah.
Well, you see, the thing is, I figured out several key things. Um, oh, damn it! I had it just yesterday. What's the god of the Nile with the gator face?
I don't know. He was irrelevant. Ptah
Um,
is Enki.
the reason I thought it was him is because he has an older half brother. He several of his, God powers and God statuses mirror both Poseidon, Inky, and Loki. It's like these four individuals all mirror each other.
Except that Loki isn't Enki. Loki is an accretion of Lucifer, who was really Apollo.
Yeah, I had figured out that Lucifer was Apollo. Figured
Hmm.
that I brought that up with you years ago.
Yeah,
Um,
Lucifer is
and
Apollo.
yeah, I think we figured that out together. I think, um, but I didn't make the Loki connection to Apollo and Lucifer. The reason, the main part that I had reached with their connection was that they were the only gods in each story that had an older half brother. You know how Enki has the older half brother Enlil.
Enlil
Um,
wasn't older.
I thought he was the older brother.
No, he's the younger brother, but he's full blood.
He's
Where-
full blood. I thought the full blood brother was the older brother.
No,
I guess I'm misinformed on that part.
uh, Enki was a half breed,
He
and
was a half breed of a draconian princess who was married
yeah,
off to his
but
father,
he was the oldest, and he should have inherited, except that he was a half breed, and
half breed. Yeah.
so it went to the oldest full blood, which was on Lil.
See, I assumed that he was older because he got the ascension to kingship.
No,
I didn't realize that they were that petty about
yes,
Inky's half blood.
yes, they are.
Um, I know they're extremely petty race. They're an extremely
Uh-huh.
aggressive. I mean,
They're
that's why the Queen Mother married off one of her daughters to him to try and calm him down and
mhm.
control his aggression, basically, and it didn't really help all that much.
Nope, because they are a patriarchal, warmongering society, and they keep their women as property inside their houses.
I
And
will bet you that
once
wife
once
did
they
not
are
like
in,
that.
once they are inside that house, they never leave.
I will bet you that there were lots of problems and fights between those two.
Oh yeah. The the good
Because
news
the
is that
Draconian Empire is the complete opposite.
yes, the good news with those folks is that each wife gets her own house,
Well, there you go.
but she's trapped inside that house from the moment she gets there until she drops dead.
You see, I don't understand how these races. I've been trying to figure this out. It's like I remember dealing with some of them. I I remember some of this, and I remember being taught some of this by the Germans and by the Draconians.
Hmm.
Um, but then it's like
They
it's
should
like
have
what the
taught you.
fuck? How
They
did these
should have taught
races?
you a lot more.
It's
You,
like how well, it's like I don't remember all of it, basically. I
yeah.
mean, we've discussed how much I actually remember. And it's I remember extremely vivid detail, visual detail of what I do remember, but it's a lot less memory than what most people remember.
Okay.
But what I
I
do
I've
remember, I
been
remember
abducted.
extremely vivid detail.
I have had to deal with those people here, in the here and now, for the last. Once I came public, the Jahami started making contact with me. At first, it was telepathic contact, and then they have a technology that produces a hologram, and they called it leaning in technology.
I've
And they would be
experienced
in
that tech with
something,
other races.
they would be sitting in a booth on their home world or on a ship, and they would have a holographic image of them presented before me. So I was interacting with a hologram. I knew it was a hologram rather than a physical person because I could put my hand through it.
I
Some,
have experienced that technology with tall grays and with mantids
yeah.
and with draconians, but I have not experienced contact in the here and now from Shahami.
Oh, I have. And they got really, really pissed because I was able to make telepathic contact with them on their home world. They did not like that. And I was bilocating. Now, normally when I bilocate, I don't physically form there, but even in my not quite physical appearance there, they could see me. So they were angry that I was daring to appear on their homeworld.
I accidentally bilocated once into a building here on Earth that was a Monarch Solutions building
Oh,
a
fun.
few years back. That was that was an interesting experience.
I
It
bet.
was I bilocated right into this room, and there were like these five what seemed like half breeds. They seemed part human, part gray, and they were wearing suits, and they were taller than me.
There are a lot of hybrids that have been created over the past 80 years. There are a lot of hybrids with different species. The majority of them were with the Zetas, and the ones that are not human looking enough are on 5 ships in orbit around Earth.
Imagine a gray that's taller than a human, has thumbs, wears a suit. His skin is almost closer to beige than a normal gray,
Mm,
but not quite.
mm,
That's what I saw.
yeah,
That was the first time I'd ever seen a gray with thumbs because they don't have thumbs.
grays don't have thumbs, no. What people here on Earth don't realize is that nearly all gray species started off very much like us, humanish. And
Yeah.
they, however many digits they had at the time, that's what they still have. But they survived either biological warfare or nuclear warfare, and that's what messed them up. So now, the particular species that we tend to call Zetas, and I don't know if Ponti are part of them or not, but the Zetas have reached the point where that they can no longer reproduce by cloning. They have to reproduce sexually, and they have lost that ability. So they were deliberately imposing that on us to blend with our species and replace us here. And it's quite clear in the channeled messages that are in Zeta Talk. It's a website that has been there for as long as I've been on the internet. And it's everything that this group of Zetas has channeled through this one woman is on Zeta Talk, and she talks about the solar flash, she talks about the pole flip, she talks about that once the solar flash strips the planet, that the planet will belong to the Zetas. So anybody who thinks that those particular people are here to help us, they're out of their minds. That particular group is here to replace us. That's a very
What
big
I know of the difference between the Zetas and the Ponti is what I've been told by the Ponti and by the Draconians is that the Zetas, and this is why the Zetas came to Earth and started doing genetic manipulation with humans, is because Zetas, back in the beginning during their wars were with Draconians. They and they lost the war and became a slave race to the Draconians.
Mhm.
They
I knew
as
that.
as recompense, a lot of them were taken and genetically altered. They were at draconian DNA was added into them, as well as cybernetically enhanced. These are the ones. Eventually, they became sterile. Those are the ones that are dealing with Earth humans, messing with our genes, taking embryos,
Mhm.
because we share a similar code on our reptilian side with them. But the Ponti are free of that.
Okay.
That didn't happen to them. They got away from that, so they don't have reptilian DNA.
Well, I knew there were 5 different races in the Zeta system. I just didn't know which ones were which.
I know the Zetas, that's happened to them, and that's why they're here, and that's why they chose us, because we share a common genetic code with our draconian part of our DNA, and they're trying to use that to blend the rest of it and try to make themselves fertile again through further genetic manipulation.
Well,
And the
they have
Ponti, I know they didn't have that draconian genetic manipulation done to them.
Yeah, well, I knew there were 5 different gray races in the Zeta system, one each one on a separate planet. So I didn't know if they were the same or not. But I do know that from Zeta Talk, they are flat out openly stating that the planet will be theirs once the solar flash happens.
Yeah,
So
that's a lot of bullshit.
yeah, that's how I figured it was this planet is ours until there is no more of us.
The uh the
It,
Galactic Authority wouldn't allow that. They won't allow the Jahami to come in and retake it because we our population has become so large.
they won't they still consider that Marduk is the owner here. They consider that the Shahami own the solar system. And all the
They
people
will
that
no
keep
longer let,
all
from
the
my
people that keep
knowledge,
arguing with me all the time saying it's Draco this and Draco that and Draco the other,
right.
I will state point blank, if this were a Draco system and we kicked out the Draco like you guys keep saying we have, there would be Draco in our skies dropping rocks.
I completely agree with you. From what I know, this is draconian occupied space. but the Jahami have a lease on this space.
Yeah.
And Marduk is the Jahami's representative here.
Yep.
He's basically the manager of this planet and the resources being mined and grown and processed and produced and whatnot.
And he
Um,
cannot come home because he's a troublemaker.
Pretty much, they're pissed at him too, just as much as we are.
Yep.
Um,
I say
and
he's an asshole.
they really don't care as much about him either because he's less Jahami than even his father. He's
Well,
a Homo capensis.
and he married one of us.
Yeah,
He married a Homo sapien.
probably several throughout his years.
Yeah, several. But he takes Homo sapiens as his partner, and they could deal with a Homo capensis, but not a Homo sapien.
Yeah, he's one of the oldest Homo capensis alive. If you remember that movie Blade Trinity,
I haven't seen that one. I didn't
that
watch
was
it.
the third one, and they depicted Dracula as Marduk. They found him in a ziggurat, and
You know there are vampires,
yes, I know, but it was just an
and
interesting
and
connection.
that that is the class that Shane Bales refers to as parents,
Yeah,
and the majority of them were vampires.
I thought it was interesting the connection that Blade Trinity's depiction of Dracula was a more reptilian looking, capable of shape shifting like a like they depict it in weird ways, but you know how the shape shifting is just it's more telepathic or technology to as a mask. But anyway, um, they depicted him as more of a reptilian than a bat at all. And they depicted him as a hybrid from something else, not spontaneously from a virus. It was so many connections to the Marduk of history. I just thought it was
Well,
interesting.
the lore among the Homo capensis about the parents has them as the species of the age before ours, that they were survivors of that and that they had learned various ways to extend their lives.
Like Thoth.
Yeah,
Thoth was Homo capensis.
that they were not even Homo capensis, that these guys were the prior state.
Originals.
Yeah, that they were the originals before any of us were made, because Homo sapiens was created before Homo capensis, because Homo capensis is a blending of Homo sapien with Jahami.
Yeah.
So they were they were the hybrids after us, but there was a group before us, the Titans,
Okay.
and the Titans were what the parents were, according to the lore that I have been being given. So I'm not going to expose my source because it was a decent man who decided to teach me.
That's
Um,
an interesting take on it. I hadn't actually thought about there being a third older species before Homo sapien.
oh, there were 22 species before Homo sapiens.
Hmm.
Scary thought, huh? Some of them, their DNA survives through some of our racial groups. That's why we have different appearances, is because of these archaic hominids that had interbred with some of us. The Neanderthal, the Cro-Magnon, the Denisovians, and others. There were 22 in all, and they were all different body shapes, ranging from pygmies to giants.
And I am aware that there were humans that were sold off to Homo sapiens that were sold off to other races, that they did other genetic manipulation to creating different kinds of Homo sapiens as well. That's actually where we get the uh, um, the fins in our just past our knuckles. You know how our knuckles are way down in our palms. So that's actually an aquatic feature that doesn't exist in primates.
We have the hairless body, or close to hairless body, and the long hair, and how is it they described it in biology? Pendulous breasts. Those are all consistent with semi-aquatic.
Yeah.
So the theory was that we survived the ice age in tropical areas, and that we were becoming water animals. And
I don't believe in adaptation that quickly.
I don't either. I think that that that's what they taught me in biology, but it's not necessarily the objective truth.
I would be
I,
more I would be more keen to learning all of that if they would just say, this is a theory we have. Let's look at all of the theories. No, they say this is what happened.
in my biology class, we were told, we know that most of you are not going to believe this because of your religious training, but this is what you have to regurgitate on the test.
I believe it.
So
I've been told that a few times.
I do believe that there is an objective truth, that there is an objective history to Earth and what's gone on here. I do not believe that anyone here in human form has it. I believe parts of it can be reconstructed by looking at the religion and the archaeology together. And I learned that technique from Ignatius Donnelly, who was a congressman in the 1800s, and from Immanuel Velikovsky. And I understand that people think that he's some sort of horrid monster, but he was the first scientist outside of the Third Reich to say that mythology had a basis in reality. So, yeah, I do believe that cataclysmic events have happened, can happen now, will continue to happen in
We have scientific evidence of it, and we have
but
scientific evidence of it having happened repeatedly
but
throughout the Earth's history.
in the 1960s, that was not considered possible. They thought that that everything was as it had always been, and he was one of the reasons that they no longer believe that. So He still has a nasty name, but fuck it. I like the man. So that explains a lot, right? I
Yeah.
think I think that Einstein made several mistakes. I suspect he knew they were mistakes. And
But his ego wouldn't let
nope,
him.
he was being paid.
Ah, money thing. I always thought it was an ego thing.
Nope, I have felt that it was a money thing. Also, most of his discoveries were while he was still married to his first wife, who was also a physicist. And once he divorced her, he made no more actual discoveries. So I'm going to bet that most of his
Plagiarism.
discoveries were hers and that we've been crediting the wrong person.
So that makes so much more sense. My studies of him, because
Um,
yeah,
yeah, but I think he started off honest and just could not make enough money because he was Jewish. And there was so much prejudice against him. And then because of the Reich's attitude towards Jews, that the Americans decided to use him as propaganda. I think that's it in a nutshell. And so, yeah. Um, but until we toss out relativity and everything that's based on it and go back to Faraday's electronics and Niels Bohr's quantum mechanics, we're not going to make the progress on Earth that we have in space. It's just not possible when you're building on a faulty foundation.
you see, the Germans were already producing these craft. Um, the first Hanabu flew before Albert Einstein's theory was ever brought out. I
Yeah,
mean, we're talking about
they were flying in the 1850s
before I was,
in
yeah,
California. They were
before
flying
the 1900s. The
yeah,
first Hanabu, I think, was actually in the 1890s to
yeah.
1900s,
So you're
before World
talking
War One.
you're talking
It was a
about
prototype, but it was
yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that's gone on, and I one of the biggest problems that I have is I start talking about these things because in Shula they said flat out that Einstein was wrong. They said that the speed of light is not a constant, that he should have kept his aether constant, and that what else did they say was wrong with it? That gravity is not a function of mass, that it's a function of magnetism. Those were the three specific things that were wrong with relativity. And that's what I was taught in Shula on Mars. And I tried to tell people that when I was in physics in San Diego State. And they looked at me like, uh-huh, all right, we're going to listen to you. Uh-huh. This was the same class where I had to wire up a thing to turn on a light and have a switch. And it was a wiring diagram test, and you had to have a different setup for each thing on the diagram. Only my power supply decided to not. So I took the wires in my hands and the light went on as it was supposed.
I
And
remember you telling me that story before.
the teaching assistant looks at me and says, "You guys get an A We will never discuss this again.
I love that story every time.
So it's like, okay, I have abilities. And if I had those abilities in 1981, taking that class at San Diego State, that's a long time before 2013 when my memories were reactivated. So when people ask, well, why did you believe the memories? Well, I'd been doing stuff like that all along. Dad would hand me the tubes from the TV and I'd dust them off and the paint would come off. You know, he'd get real mad because the numbers were gone. Come on. One day I was 6 years old. I took his 30-06 apart, cleaned it, oiled it, put it back together. He about shit himself. I had been doing stuff all along. It's not like one day my memory was activated and I believed that, yes, this has happened to me. No, I'd been weird all along. And then the memories made it make sense. So if you've got somebody that they're 40 years old and they've never had a weird thing in their life,
They're probably not SSP.
and they're not sick, they have nothing wrong with them physically, mentally, they have no alters, they're not sick, they've never had a weirdness in their life, they don't know what a psiability is, and they're telling you that they're SSP, don't believe them.
Don't believe them.
Especially if they're quoting the Urantia book while they're telling you this.
Pretty much everyone that I know to be real, that we have shared memories of each other, is sick in some way,
Mm-hmm,
and usually it's centered around the adrenals.
mm-hmm.
And they usually have some sort of brain dysfunction, fogginess, memory troubles, and yet they remember all of this. They all of
Sometimes
them
I
have,
know someone who gets mind wiped every 6 months and he has to start over figuring out what he did.
yeah,
And it is so frustrating because
it is
I remember I
dealing with
remember
him.
I remember what he told me before, and now it's like you can't help him because he has to remember it on his own.
I
And
know.
just about the time that he remembers it good again, they wind wipe him again. And I'm just like, oh my God, this poor guy. But yes,
It makes you wonder what he's seen,
yeah, what he's still seeing that they
what
can
he's
never,
still seeing, what they're
yeah,
still using him for to make them do that. Makes you wonder. Um, to some of us, like myself, I've wondered how many times have I been wiped, or have I been wiped, and they're just using alters and suppressing them back. Because most of the times I'm taken, I have symptoms and signs, but
mhm.
I don't remember being taken.
A lot of mine is they've used a different alter, so there's no shared memory.
Right.
But I will have a fuzzy memory of a red portal in the hallway. And
I will usually
and
have a
people
fuzzy memory of someone standing over my bed.
and black fatigues. And
Yes.
they either have
Black
no
military fatigues.
they either have no insignias or I don't see them.
For
But the
me, it's always the black fatigues, no insignias.
now I have an ongoing issue with the faces are gone. And I don't mean that they're blurry. I mean, they're invisible, see-through. It's like there is no face there.
I see the face, but it's like the only thing that's just clear enough to where I can make out through the blurriness is the lower jaw region, like if they're smiling or something. And that's when you start feeling like real scared is when the guy is smiling.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
Because those guys are sadists. If they're
yeah.
if they're smiling, you're in trouble. I mean that's what it is. Um,
Remember as a kid, my first see your screen memory was of you as a mermaid in a kelp bed.
mm,
They didn't go so far with my screen memory. I was still being abducted in my screen memory, just wasn't by humans.
well, they tried that when I was a kid. They would wear dinosaur uniform, dinosaur costumes, and I would unzip them.
Yeah, that was way back when. And now
Well,
they just pop a memory in you.
yeah.
See, I worked my way through the screen memory of berets standing around my bed to
Hmm.
that all washing away and a guy standing there in black fatigues when I was a little boy. And we went through the wall, and suddenly I was in this beam of light, and I look up, and the beam of light is coming from the center of a giant black triangle.
Yep. The triangle ships come in different colors, and they also have the capability of having a energy wash over them that can make them change colors. So what color it is doesn't so much matter as that it's a triangle. The triangle ships are American.
Right. Well, this was all at
And
night.
that's
You
that's
can't
what
see colors
that's
anyway.
what the public needs to understand. The triangle ships, the flying wings, the V shapes, those are American.
Yep.
The Tic Tac ships, those are tall whites. The cigar ships, those used to be Germans, but now Solar Warden has them too.
Which are American.
Solar Warden is American. So you have those are the ones that come to mind. The one that I used on the background that will be the cover for this video, that's a German ship. That's one of the newest versions out there. They come in several different shapes that are mostly teardrop or spear shaped. And they're black and they have some sort of scroll design in light on them. And they're really quite elegant looking.
I've been this whole time assuming that but I honestly really don't know. It's like a half circle shaped ship, almost like a manta ray, where it's like a half circle and then a tail that kind of comes that looks like a oceanic manta ray, and
I
they're
haven't
they're
seen
they're
those.
pure silver colored. Um, I have some in my memories, and I discovered that there is video footage of them back in the late 40s and early 50s.
Mm.
And
Are they the flying wing
they
design?
were quite interesting. Yeah, like
because
it's
that
almost
was
like a half circle
okay.
with a tail.
There was a flying wing design that was initiated by the Germans and was captured by the Americans at the end of World War II. And that has
Well,
been
you're
what
thinking
they
about the 226,
I don't
the Horton
remember the numbers.
226,
Horton sounds familiar.
the Horton HO 226. I've done research on that particular craft. This one I'm referring to, it didn't have any inlets or exhaust for jet engines. The Horton 226 was a jet engine aircraft.
Hmm,
Um, but this one, it was like as enclosed as anything else.
okay.
Just something that I remembered. You were talking, and I suddenly remembered um, that video footage, and I have memories of seeing one kind of hovering over a concrete tarmac, like a concrete airstrip, just hovering there, um, like low to the ground, like it's supposed to be there, like it's just like landing, kind of hovering.
Well, we have just about 20 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget one of the things that I wanted to talk about today. We have a lot of people going public, and whether or not I think they're real, there's some information that they all need before they sign any contracts. Podcasts fall under music laws, which means if you are being published by a radio station, if you are being published by a broadcaster, you better take a damn good look at your contract. Now, those of us who remember back in the day when Eminem was talking smack about Michael Jackson. Okay, I blanked on his last name for a minute. When Eminem was talking smack about Michael Jackson, and everybody thought that Michael Jackson was going to sue him, and instead Michael Jackson went and bought his catalog. Your catalog is the collection of your works. Now, if you've had them published by somebody else, that somebody else owns them. They own the copyright to them. They own all the rights to them. That's why I've had musicians tell me, well, you can share my music. And then when I go to put that video on YouTube, YouTube tells me, oh, no, you can't, because the musician no longer owns the rights to that song. His publishing company did. So if you are doing a podcast and you are not publishing under your own name, you need to make it clear that you are retaining all rights to your work. And you need that in writing. And don't sign anything after that that does not acknowledge that you own the rights to your work. Otherwise, somebody else is going to own your stuff. And every time you talk about your own story, you're going to have to pay them money.
Or they can shut you up.
Or they can shut you up, or they can lock you down, or they can erase all of your stuff offline. Now, I've had my show on a radio station, radio network, for the last 3 years. I have it in writing that I own my show and that radio network was licensed to mirror it. I own my show. I have copyrighted my show. And I want to give a shout out to G Sharp out of Detroit, Michigan, because he is the one who sat me down and explained this to my ignorant little ass. He used to open for Prince. He has played with some of the best. He has Grammys, and he took the trouble to explain this to me when I was getting started. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have an interview with him somewhere in my YouTube collection. He's a great man. He's out there still working, so support his work. But I wanted people to know, if you're going public, make sure you always own your stuff. Now, it won't always ensure that things are spread under your own name. There's an asshole out there, Christopher Davies, who is a flat earther, who has claimed to own one of my presentations that I had copyrighted 3 years before he laid claim to it. So if he's out there and you know him, give him hell. He deserves it. Yeah, I know. I wasn't gonna name names, but praise one, curse one.
Got to keep the balance in there, huh?
Gotta keep the balance. Life's all about balance. And this goes for anybody that you're going to work with at all. I had an incident where I was supposed to be paid for my work and wasn't, and they kept the recordings anyway, and they put them online and made money off them. And what you gonna do? I'm not in a position to sue them, but karma's a bitch. So make sure your ass is covered. So we have a little bit of time left. You want to talk about where people can find you, Matt?
They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on MeWe. Pretty much that's it for the moment. I am considering my own YouTube channel at some point.
Well, when you get to 1,000 followers, and I think it was something like there's a minimum number of hours watched. At that point, you can monetize. I didn't because they don't like my theme song.
Huh.
My theme song was written for me by Kevin Estrella of Pyramids on Mars. He has not recorded it for sale through anyone other than himself. The work is completely his own. He owns his catalog, and he has given me full rights to use it. And I'll be damned if I let YouTube take it away from me. How often do you get a rock star write you something that good? Come on.
Yep.
So it's perfect, absolute perfection. And I had such a hard time making an intro out of it that he made it for me. So it's perfect, just as it is. So, do you have any big plans for the future?
Uh, as far as the community goes, not too much. Personal life, I got a few things in the works. But as far as the community goes, I'm considering doing my own channel, getting my own story out there. I know people have been really bugging me to pick up my journal again, but I think I might do a video version.
Okay. You need to be careful about sharing it on Facebook because Facebook copyrights everything.
Ah,
If you've already got it copyrighted, then Facebook is SOL. There's
I was thinking about doing YouTube and Rumble and what's that other one? I
Rockfin.
can't remember.
There's Rockfin and Odyssey.
No, those weren't the one. I didn't even know those existed.
Rockfin is a paid place, and it people pay one fee to be able to watch everybody, and while they're there they can donate you money, and it's a lot easier than Patreon. But I have a Patreon because people wanted to support my work, and because they will support my work for 2, 3, 4 months and then they drop it, I really didn't want to give them my bank account stuff. And Patreon sends me a check for whoever has paid. So,
I know I had your Patreon and Tony's Patreon. I was paying into them for a while, but then my my ankle broke at work, and I've been laid up for 8 months, and money got tight.
oh, I
So I
understand
cut down as much
perfectly.
as I could.
Um, I, God, this is going to sound terrible. I never even considered people would want to give me their money. And so the Patreon idea, when I was still on Reality Brief, Dawn from Reality Brief said, you need to get a Patreon. People are going to want to support your work. You need, you need a place for them to donate where you're not giving out all your personal information. And I said, okay. They have a minimum charge of $2 a month. So I set it for the minimum. I have to kind of force myself to remember to post things there because most of the stuff that I do is completely public. So I have to stop and think, how long has it been since I gave them something that was just theirs? Because they are choosing to don't to give me money. You know, it's outside of my paradigm. So it's something I have to think about. Now, for those of you who are paying attention to what I do outside of YouTube, I'm going to be speaking at a conference in October. It's the 5D Events series. He's calling this Bio Expo, and he's going to have one room that's free, and it's all the vendors. But if you want to hear the speakers, you're going to have to pay money. And if you pay ahead of time, it's $200. Well, if you pay, the early bird price is $200. The at the door price is $400. So don't go expecting it all to be free because it won't be. And I'm going to be there, and Joseph Powell's going to be there, and I understand that Anthony Zender is going to be there, and there may be others. Saeed Farman has been recruiting people, and I don't even know who all the people are that he's got lined up, so could be interesting. So if you want to join me at that, that's October 6th through 9th, and it's at the Alexis Hotel. And I'll put the link when I upload this. So I also plan on putting the links to the holy books that some of these other people are plagiarizing, so that you'll have some idea of where they're getting the stuff that they're coming up with and claiming it to be downloads. I personally find that very offensive. Now, if you want to read a holy book, read the holy book. If you want to be SSP, be SSP. But don't plagiarize a holy book pretending to be SSP. Matt,
Yep, I'm here.
you got any last words?
Ah, it's the worst thing you could ever tell me. You know, I never have anything like that.
Hey, come on. In that case,
My brain isn't that
thank you,
organized.
thank you for coming, because I have a hell of a time sitting here talking to the camera.
Well, thanks for having me. I always enjoy coming on and just chatting.
Yeah, I did cover everything that I wanted covered, and we threw in a lot of other stuff too. So
Oh, yeah.
I hope the audience finds it interesting, and thank everyone for listening.